As we age, we gain wisdom. But what else happens to our brains as we age? Are you protecting your aging brain? We know that lifestyle has a profound impact on our brain health. What we eat and drink, how much we exercise, how well we sleep, the way we socialize, and how we manage stress are all critically important to our brain health. In today's episode, we'll be joined by dementia specialist and healthy brain expert Jennifer Awinda. She'll help us understand a common brain disease, dementia. She'll also tell us about good diet practices for brain health, and we'll discuss the importance of healthy telomeres and quality omega supplements, like LifePharm's Omega 3+. Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Janet Walker. For over 16 years, I've been a writer and producer for the award-winning national PBS health information programs, American Health Journal, and Innovations in Medicine. We've interviewed thousands of doctors, scientists, and researchers on every topic related to health and medicine. In this podcast, I'll be focusing on ways to improve your health on a cellular level. We'll also discuss the science, research, and products developed by our sponsor, LifePharm Incorporated, a company dedicated to cellular repair, longevity, and healthy aging. Welcome, listeners. Today we're so happy to have senior care professional, dementia trainer, and author-illustrator Jennifer Awinda with us. Jennifer has served as a volunteer for the Banner Alzheimer's Institute and the Alzheimer's Association. For nearly 20 years, she has had various progressive roles for senior care companies, including Executive Director of Assisted Living and Memory Care Facilities, Regional Operations for Assisted Livings in the Western United States, and Chief Operations Officer for a senior care company in Arizona. Jennifer is a frequent public speaker at presentations and seminars, a guest on radio and television, and she is certified through the National Council of Certified Dementia Practitioners. Welcome, Jennifer. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me on.
So you work in assisted living and memory care communities, including as a traveling lecturer on the topic of dementia, and have written so many books about the topic. How did you become interested in the topic and in working with dementia patients?
Around 20 years ago, I had two grandparents, my maternal grandparents, diagnosed with different diseases, both of which caused dementia. So my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease that led to dementia. And my grandfather was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, which also led to dementia. So, visiting them, I would see the disconnect going on in their brains. It was almost like there was some short-circuiting happening. My grandparents were highly intelligent. My grandmother was a librarian. My grandfather, both of them, highly intelligent people. And so for them to have been slipping that way and even not recognize my own mother, I remember my grandmother was talking about my own mother who was sitting right beside me, but she didn't recognize her. So I started working in assisted living communities, activities director. I became marketing, did a lot of different roles in assisted living to help with people who needed answers to questions, to help them find the right place to live, things like that.
And let's talk about your books for a moment. Why did you write Navigating Arizona's Senior Care Industry, as well as several children's books on the topic of dementia?
The Navigating book itself was due to just about every family member that would inquire about senior care. They had the same exact questions. And I'd have 3 different inquiry calls or more every single day. It actually has not changed. I've actually got more inquiries on a daily basis over the years. So unfortunately, it's the dementia situation is progressing negatively. The book Navigating Arizona's Senior Care Industry it basically answers questions about just about every topic related to senior care. When people ask about what's the difference between independent living and assisted living and memory care, and what's an in-home care company versus medical home health, and what is an advanced directive, and hospice and palliative care and geriatric care managers. And I even put a a small piece in there regarding dementia, what it looks like, and how it gets diagnosed, things like that, how to interact with people who have dementia at all stages, just the very basics of information so it's not overwhelming. The book is literally 25 pages long. The children's books portion of it, the children's books about dementia that I have written are to bridge the gap, because I was an activity director for around 7 years. The grandparents, great-grandparents I was working with would have visitors come in, the adult children, who would bring their children, sometimes grandchildren, to visit their loved one. And what I saw very often were the children playing over here when grandma's way over there. There was no intergenerational programming happening in the community during the visit. So I got very interested in that part. I began pulling in the children, coming up with things that they could do, that our seniors with whatever stage of dementia they were in, that they could do so they could, have a enjoyable visit together. The children's books are ABC Alzheimer's Book for Children, and it's basically different activities that you can do with someone who has dementia. I wrote Once a Man, Twice a Child, Dementia Education for Teenagers, and that is because the teens, they can grab a lot more information. It breaks down what dementia is versus what the disease is that causes dementia, different symptoms of each of those diseases that affect the different parts of the brain that cause dementia. Of course, activities, since activities is huge for me. Quality of life is so important. We can live 100 years, but if your, last 40 years is all debilitating, what kind of quality of life are you having?
Right.
And then, of course, the book that I'm writing right now is for that adult child who is, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, with their loved one, with a loved one that has dementia. So they can not just understand what's going on in the brain and not just have those engaging visits, but also try to prevent their own bodies from developing diseases that cause dementia. Because unfortunately, our nation is getting sicker. And I know that for sure because of all the inquiries that I'm getting now. They have changed. The people who are looking for assisted living now are much different than the ones that were looking for assisted living 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it was, my mom needs help with, incontinence care, medication management. But now, they're bedbound. They have catheters. They are baby boomers in their 60s and 70s with dementia. Many of them have diseases that are going to cause dementia, even if they don't already have the dementia. So it's a scary reality that our future looks fearful regarding health, or health conditions in this country. So that's why I write all these books.
Now let's talk a little bit about the disease itself. What's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia?
So Alzheimer's is just one of the many diseases or conditions that causes dementia. Just one of them. A stroke, a massive stroke can cause dementia. Of course, Parkinson's disease can cause dementia. A traumatic brain injury can cause dementia. Actually, the first case of dementia was in the mid-1800s, where a gentleman named Gage worked on the railroad, and one of the railroad bars went through his frontal lobe, and he developed dementia, personality changes, all that stuff. Of course, we've got chemically induced dementia, the alcohol abuse. Of course, I'm fearful for the future with all of the street drugs and pharmaceutical drugs that are plaguing our nation, which will likely lead to serious conditions that would cause dementia. There are, hydroencephalitis causes dementia. There's so many different things that cause dementia. Dementia itself is the symptoms. Dementia is an umbrella term of symptoms of the cognitive decline. The diseases themselves and the conditions themselves are what lead to developing dementia.
What are some of the most common symptoms of dementia?
Specifically with let's talk about Alzheimer's dementia, since that seems to be the bulk of all the dementia cases. It's
Okay.
initially it's that memory loss and repeating yourself, the asking the same question 5 minutes later or 30 seconds later, not being able to retain the new information. Or, I take my dog on a walk every single day. We always go around this one same corner and we go home. But now I go outside and nothing is recognizable to me. I can't figure out where I'm at. I get lost in space. So it's hard for me to get to the store and then to the bank and then back home. Or I get lost in time. I think it's 1950 and it's really 2022. One of the assessments that I do for new coming residents is ask a few questions. Who's the president of the United States? What's the date? What's the year? What did you eat yesterday? If you can't remember what you ate yesterday, and that's not because you ate a bunch of things all day long, but you genuinely cannot remember that you ate breakfast this morning, then that is cause for concern. You should probably see your physician and, of course, neurologist that can begin doing the MOCA tests and all the different cognitive testing. So in the initial stages for the Alzheimer's specifically, that type of dementia, I see the memory loss. I see the inability to find the right words to say, not being able to comprehend what other people are saying, formulate that sentence the way that you really want to. That communication piece is huge. And then the frontal lobe problems that we see are bad decisions, not understanding people need personal space, not being able to see other people's point of view or their perspective, have that empathy or compassion. So we see a lot of different things in the early stages. In the later stages of dementia, we see, of course, the communication piece just fading even more, being able to communicate, being able to control impulses and emotions. The occipital lobe in the back of the brain tends to be affected with vision problems, not recognizing people or recognizing that beads are not candy, that bleach is not water. So it's very dangerous. You hear about a lot of situations that happen in assisted livings due to the inability to recognize danger. So those are some of the symptoms of dementia. Of course, there are so many more. But the changes in personality and behavior, the changes in communicating and being able to understand, those are huge.
Are there any preventative measures that people can take to help keep them from developing dementia?
Yes. The good thing is, even if you genetically are predisposed, say, like my grandparents, I've got two grandparents. I know they had dementia. They had diseases that caused dementia. But even though that is the situation, environment plays a huge factor. How I treat my body, what I put in my body. Most of the foods in our country lead to diseases that cause dementia. Most of these foods that are approved by the FDA are banned in other countries. So there's something there, okay? Our country has many epidemics of disease, not just one, and we're talking even toddlers, that are obese and things like that. So if we're drinking sugary drinks, be it the juice or be it the sodas and the energy drinks and stuff like that, we're putting poison in our body. I saw like a Instagram or Facebook or one of those posts a few years ago, and it said, humans are plants with emotions, something to that extent. Like if you pour soda pop on your plant, it's probably not going to thrive like if you give it water. So not only are we
Oh, that's a
depleting,
great analogy.
yeah, not
Yeah.
only are we depleting our bodies of water, but we're depleting our bodies of fiber. Most of the foods that are processed have removed all the fibers from the foods in order to increase the shelf life. Any fast food that you get has like zero fiber. Maybe there's a little bit, but that's not like what we used to eat. Hundreds of years ago, we were eating fiber all the time, and now we're not. So that has a huge part to play. All these processed foods, whether it's a vegan processed food or whether it's crackers and cookies, I mean, you might as well just eat the cookies then. They're just
Yeah.
about the same. We have bacteria in our guts, both good and bad. And unfortunately, we've got these epidemics of disease in our country. The foods that we're eating are feeding the bad bacterias. And those bacterias, just like every cell in our body, has a mind of its own. So those bacterias are telling us to reach for those chips and reach for those donuts and reach for those delicious pastries that are actually killing us and poisoning us. So all these delicious foods, the fatty, the bad fats, I'll say, they're calling us. We're reaching out to them because they're calling us. It's hard to change your diet, especially just overnight cold turkey. It takes a really, really strong will to do that.
So then the worst foods for brain health are processed foods, fatty and fried foods, and I think you mentioned sugar, sugary drinks, sugar.
Yes. And it's different nowadays than it was 100 years ago when sugar was way more expensive and harder to find prior to World War II. Back then, the amount of sugar that we were consuming was minute compared to the average 100 pounds a year that every American is consuming, or the 50 pounds a year of high fructose corn syrup that the average American is consuming. When people talk about they want to lose weight, I'm like, well, if you drink any sugary drinks, if you eat anything with high fructose corn syrup, you're fighting against yourself. So here we're dieting, we're doing all these diets, but we're fighting against ourselves by consuming other things that are not whole foods.
So then whole foods are the best foods that we can eat to protect our brains.
Most definitely. Whole foods, they're easy to find too. They're just not what we want necessarily in our diets.
So then whole foods would be grains, fruits, vegetables, and even meats, as long as they're in their single ingredient form, meaning they haven't been processed. Is that right?
Well, okay. Let's talk about pecans and walnuts as well. Those, they even look like brains. Those are good for brain food. Berries, the blueberries, those are great. Any berries, the high in antioxidants, anything that's going to help with that. There are quite a few things, the flaxseed, the pumpkin seed, the chia seeds, those are really great for brain health. Soy, I know there's some controversy out there about soy, but soy is good for brain health. The main thing is we have to, if you're worried about the estrogen part of soy or whatever, then, moderation. But to just say, I'm not going to eat any soy at all, work with your physician to make sure that what you decide to eat is going to be healthy for you. I know some people are on certain medications. They can't have dark green leafy vegetables or whatever, or maybe they're allergic to nuts or seeds or whatever. So do what's right for you. Consult your physician. But if you can, eat those dark green leafy vegetables, the spinach and the kale, and the collard greens and the different types of leafy vegetables, the Brussels sprouts. If you can consume those things, they're going to help for your brain health. The fatty fish also has the high in omega-3s, like the salmon and the herring. But you have to be careful because of the mercury. And unfortunately, the farmed fish in our country, the stuff that makes the salmon pink on those fish farms, that is outlawed in other countries. So we have to be really careful with some of those foods that sound like they're good, but may have mercury or some additives or preservatives or hormones or whatever, antibiotics, whatever they're putting in the foods, which leads to our cows and our chickens and our, the pigs and things like that. Those products, I'm just going to say it, they're not good for our health. Yes, I do like some fried chicken once in a while. I'm not going to lie. But I know when I eat it, I'm working against myself. The animals that are being raised on the farms are, let me just put it like this. Most of the antibiotics being pushed out in this country are going straight into the animals. So we are eating what those animals are being, pumped up with. And even when they say they're free range and things like that, you got to be careful because there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of things that you can read. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube you can watch, all Netflix, all these different documentaries that you can watch about how the food is grown in our country, whether it is a plant or whether it is an animal, and how it's actually working against us. I just feel that over the decades, we've been told we have to eat meat and that we have to eat certain things that are working against us. I know there was a big thing in the 80s, low fat. Well, that did not help with weight loss, that's for sure, because we've got a real problem with obesity. Anything that says low fat or low sugar probably has some type of an additive in it that is not good for our health. So if you're going to get the low-fat cream, you might as well just get the regular cream.
Right.
Yeah. If you're going to go sugar-free because you're diabetic, that's different. But what's happening is we're treating symptoms more than we're treating the actual problem. I could put all the face creams on that I could afford to prevent wrinkles, but I'm not actually doing right by my body if I'm not consuming the omega-3s and the other things that I need to ensure that my skin is looking good.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about supplements. Are supplements helpful for those interested in preventing dementia or even for those who already have dementia? Because I'm sure that a lot of people can't get the amount of whole food nutrition through eating lots of vegetables and spinach and kale and such, especially as people get elderly in assisted living or start suffering from dementia.
Yes. The easy answer is yes. We have to use supplements because the food is so lacking now in nutrients and because we cook our food. We're not eating it raw for the most part. If I go and get the broccoli or the kale or whatever, I'm more likely to cook it in butter or some other thing that's not really healthy. But I'm basically, even if I'm using olive oil, which is better, right? That's better than the other types of oils. But even if I'm using olive oil, I'm still killing all the nutrients out of the food. So I'm not getting what I need, which means I must take supplements myself. But the supplements can't just be any supplements. There's a bazillion of them out there. And a lot of times we're not getting the vitamin D that we need to actually absorb those nutrients in the supplements. So it goes right through you, just like if you were to eat a piece of paper. It's not going to, give you what you're looking for, what your body is looking for. So yes, the short answer, we need supplements nowadays because things have changed so much in the food processing and manufacturing industry.
Let's talk a little bit about our sponsor, LifePharm. As you know, they make a number of whole food supplements, and they're very careful about how they source their ingredients, sustainability, products that are mostly organic, and several to help with brain health. So I'd like to talk a moment first about laminine, which has an FGF cell-generating ingredient blend, including an egg biofactor that stimulates stem cells. A recent study shows how laminine supports good cell protection and development, particularly in the area of keeping telomeres long and robust. So we won't get too deep into discussions about laminin in this episode, but can you tell us a little bit about telomeres and why they're important to brain health?
Yes, I'm so glad that we're talking about telomeres. I, over the past few years, have been learning about telomeres. We are not suffering from age-related diseases. We are suffering from telomere shortening related diseases. So telomeres are basically the protective ends of our chromosomes, those little plastic things at the end of the shoelaces that keep the shoelace from unraveling. So here our telomeres are like that plastic end of a shoelace, but every time we regenerate new cells, those telomeres are telling us how to regenerate it and what should be in there, and they're shortening every time we're making new cells. These are shortening. So the shorter the telomeres get, now we're seeing the wrinkles and the gray hair, and we're aging. We are aging because our telomeres are shortening. I know there are some people out there that are 60 and 70 years old and they look like they're 30. And maybe they're even in health, like they're, better health like they're in their 30s. And I've known 50-year-olds that look like they're 70. So that's where those telomeres are coming into play. And the only way to make sure our telomeres remain healthy is to consume the micronutrients that we need, the omega-3s and the other things that are going to help prevent our telomeres from disappearing altogether. Because if they disappear altogether, well, poof, there went that cell, there went that chromosome, there went that. So we have to prevent our telomeres from disappearing, from shortening. A lot of people talk about, the fountain of youth, and they want to live, to be over 100. Well, nowadays, it's quite possible that you can live to be 100 or more, like a lot of the residents in assisted living, but their quality of health is terrible. And they're using all of these medications that are potentially prolonging their life, but not helping with their disease process. So having a quality life is probably more important than just having longevity, because you're going to want both of them together.
Well, and the telomere study that LifePharm conducted, which is actually in the physician's PDR, it was quite a lengthy study, and it did indicate that the product does help lengthen telomeres, but they also did a study with that product in conjunction with an omega product. And you've mentioned omegas multiple times. So let's talk about omegas a little bit and why those are so important to brain health.
Omega-3s are like our building blocks for life. Let me just say it that way, because I see a lot of mental health problems out there. And yes, we have all these diseases that are epidemics, but our mental health problem is an epidemic too. The behavioral health facilities are overflowing nowadays. And I know the pandemic added to issues, but it appears that pandemic just helped those issues to resurface. So we had depression and anxiety and all these different things before, but now it's like over the top. Omega-3s help to stabilize our mood, and we do not produce these naturally within our bodies. So the only way to get them is either through the foods we eat or through supplements. And the supplements themselves, you have to take enough of that supplement in order for it to actually make an impact. But those omega-3s, they help to not only stabilize our mood, they help people feel better. Your overall outlook on life, you feel more positive. But they help to prevent heart disease and high blood pressure and the cholesterol and all the plaque buildup and all that stuff. They help to prevent those strokes. They help prevent cancers and things like that. So it's also good for your hair and your skin. So putting all those topical creams and putting all the chemicals or whatever nutrients onto your hair isn't going to be as beneficial as actually consuming what we need and doing it from the inside out. Omega-3s help with our energy level. So in the United States, we work hard a lot. I know there's a lot of people that are lazy, okay? That's just around the world. But there are also a lot of people who don't even take a vacation because they can't afford it. They're working 2 and 3 jobs. People are working really, really hard in this country. For those that are working hard, we feel like we have low energy. You know, our energy is being zapped from us. When we come home after, a long day or a long night or a long weekend or whatever, it's like we just want to sit and just rest and kind of rejuvenate. But the food that we're eating is working against our energy. So those omega-3s help with that energy. They help with our intelligence overall. The pregnant mom who is high in omega-3s is doing a benefit for their children. For that child that'll be born, the children that are eating, consuming the proper doses of omega-3s, they don't have the brain fog and the ADHD like some other children that for breakfast they're eating blue and green sugar cereal.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So the things that
makes sense.
Yeah, the things that we're feeding our children, the Pop-Tarts. The things that are banned in other countries are working against our children and our children's mental health. And as we see these school shootings on the rise, and not just in the schools, but now at the malls and at the theaters and wherever, at the 4th of July parade, this is serious mental health problems that we're having in our country stemming from not getting the nutrients like the omega-3s and the mood stabilizing nutrients that we need in our bodies. Omega-3s, we absolutely need in our bodies to help our brains and our overall physiological functioning of our bodies.
Gosh, you don't really consider the impact that poor nutrition has on mental health that leads to all these issues, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
When you mention it, it does. It makes perfect sense.
I mean, even like the flour, most of us, if we're going to choose to eat that product that is made from flour, one, we already know it's likely not a good thing for us if it's bleached white flour, because if you have a drop of bleach in your system every day over 40 years, it's going to have some health situations. So a lot of the foods that we eat, I know pasta's delicious, bread is so yummy, but hardly any of us are eating the whole grain bread, the whole wheat.
Right.
And just those types of things. So we're lacking. We're fighting against our own bodies and our own mental health. And we've got all this disease, all this diabetes, and here omega-3s help to improve insulin resistance, right? So if we're not consuming the omega-3s, then we're adding disease to our bodies. We are shortening our telomeres. Acne is a huge problem for a lot of teenagers and adults. And omega-3s actually help with skin conditions. So if you have an issue with acne, or if you have an issue with joint pain, like the osteoporosis and the different things, the omega-3s, I'm not going to say it can, cure anything, right? But omega-3s help with that type of stuff. They help with the brittle thinning hair and the low immune system. They help to improve your overall intelligence. If you feel like you have brain fog, those omega-3s are going to be beneficial for you. And I realize a lot of the supplements are fish oils. And fish oils, although we need, the good stuff, right, from those fish oils, they do have contaminants in them because they're coming from the ocean that we have already polluted with all kinds of stuff, all kinds of toxic things. So the fish are ingesting and absorbing all of these pollutants in the ocean, which means when they extract the fish oil, they have to do it through a process that eliminates all of those toxins.
Let's talk about LifePharm's omega-3 plus product. Now, I know that you haven't personally experienced the product, but we're going to send you some,
Okay.
so that you can try it. But I know that you're very familiar with the ingredients, so maybe we can just talk a little bit about those.
The product that LifePharm I'm learning about, I don't have enough information yet. I'm still learning, but it appears that the supplements are derived from the egg white at a point before a fertilized egg, but from the egg white itself that has certain properties in it that are going to help to build omega-3s in our bodies. So I'm interested in learning more about that process.
Right. And then the fish that are used are also sustainable. They're from clean waters in South America, and the fish oil undergoes a molecular distillation that's tested to remove heavy metals to ensure the safety of the oils. So in combination with the egg white, the FGF, they're trying to produce something that's effective but very safe.
Yeah.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for being here and talking to us about dementia and ways to understand it, ways to maybe slow down the progression of it. And thank you so much for talking about omegas. And I hope you enjoy the omega-3 plus product. I'd be interested in hearing your reaction once you've received it and have tried it. And I hope that we can have you join us again sometime. This was a great interview. It was so nice talking to you. You're so knowledgeable.
Thank you very much. I look forward to receiving the products. I realize there's a series of products. There's, one for brain health, one for skin health, things like that. So I'm looking forward to learning more about it, trying it myself. And then, after a few weeks, I'll give you, some information on what I feel, how it's doing on me. So.
Great. Well, we've got the omega going out to you, but if you look at the list of products, if there's anything else that you want to try, like the skin product or the laminine with the egg growth factor, just let me know and we'll get those out to you and we can talk about them.
Wonderful.
If you want to learn more about Jennifer's work or are interested in her books on dementia for children, teens, and adults, please visit her online at jenniferawinda.com. That's Jennifer, AWINDA.com. And if you're interested in omega-3 plus, a high-quality healthy supplement for brain health, visit www.lifepharm.com. That's LifePharm.com. Thank you so much for listening to the Healthy Cells, Healthy You podcast with me, your host, Janet Walker. And thanks to the people of LifePharm who care about providing the highest quality supplements for health and cellular repair. Please subscribe and tell your friends. They can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever they get their podcasts. Together, we'll build healthy cells and a healthy you. A listener note. Omega-3 Plus and other LifePharm products are manufactured in a facility that upholds current good manufacturing practices and is U.S. Food and Drug Administration compliant. The statements in this podcast have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If you have any questions about your specific health conditions or are allergic to eggs, fish, or soy, please consult with your physician.